I afford that? Will I actually make that money back? That is how I felt every single time I invested in an SMMA course. And over the years, I've spent $58,000 on SMMA courses. And in this video, I'm going to give my opinion. Was it actually worth it? And do I recommend that people just starting out or people a little bit further along the line also invest in SMMA courses? Is it worth it? And wait a second here. I think it's important to address that I know that most people watching this video are probably just starting or haven't even started their SMMA. And personally, I didn't invest in my first course until I was more than $10,000 a month revenue. And if you haven't started or you're under $10,000 a month, then consider these two things before investing in an SMMA course. Number one, the free information online has never been better in human history. When I started in 2016, the free information was already pretty good, but in 2023, it's practically Netflix level. And number two, the value of information increases the more money that you're already making. Going from 0 to 1 is 90% doing and 10% information. So your ability to actually implement that information is really limited. For example, you don't buy high performance parts for a car that you don't own yet. You have to build the car first. So with those two things out of the way, investing in myself, even when I was past $10,000 a month, the fear of that never actually went away. So right now, I'm gonna walk you through each investment I made in a mentor, what I got out of it, what my concerns were, and if I think it's worth it for other people at different stages in your agency growth. When I invested to work with my first SMMA mentor, Daniel DiPiazza, I was about $15,000 a month in revenue, and I was a little bit stuck. I was making enough to make some okay, decent money for myself, but not enough to really hire a team and actually scale my operation. And I knew deep down that I had to invest in team members and growing a team to actually scale to the next level, but there was something holding me back from doing it. I first heard about Daniel from the Impact Theory podcast, and he seemed like a really smart guy. So when he announced he was launching a program for $12,000 of getting people to scale to $20,000 a month in their agency, I was one of the first people to sign up. And not gonna lie, $12,000 for me at the time completely drained my bank account. Like there was literally almost nothing left by the time I paid him 12 grand. And internally, I was pretty confident that the course would help me get to $25,000 a month as advertised, but it was still a pretty scary thing to invest way more money than I've ever invested in anything at that point in my life. And funny story, I actually almost backed out from the course. I had a pretty bad revenue for my agency, and I actually emailed Daniel asking for a refund purely off the basis that I was scared. But as a good coach should, Daniel hopped on a call with me and explained to me that cash flow crises are just a normal part of a startup bootstrapped business. And he talked me through, if I give up now, then I will never reach my goal of having a 7-figure agency. And looking back in retrospect, he was completely right. So I stayed in the program. And here are the top things that I learned from my $12,000 mentorship with Daniel DiPiazza. The first thing is the weekly scorecard. Now this sounds so simple, but I wasn't doing anything like this. And it's basically a simple spreadsheet that has all of your most important business metrics, like your top line revenue, whatever your leads you're getting from your lead form, or your email list, and just all the most important metrics you should be taking care of, and then putting those into a spreadsheet on a weekly basis. So every week I would get a snapshot of how well are we doing, are we moving towards our goals, and just that simple fact of tracking it in like a literal Google sheet forced me to focus on the things that actually matter. And the other really important thing that I learned from Daniel DiPiazza was the visionary integrator relationship. There's a great book called Traction by a guy named Gino Wickman, and in the book, his entire premise is that in every successful business in history, there are two people. There is a visionary and an integrator. So in Apple, for example, that is Steve Jobs is the visionary, the guy who was coming up with amazing ideas and who really sets the direction for where the company's going. And there is an integrator. That's the guy who actually makes the plan the visionary comes up with become a reality from an operational perspective. And personally, I am way on the end of visionary. I love coming up with ideas and strategies, just that whole ideation process, but I hate actually getting into the weeds and doing all the operations and making sure it actually happens. So I knew immediately I had to hire my integrator. And once I found that person, once I hired my first operations manager, the game totally changed. My entire focus was now going towards visionary things and things I love to do, could also provide a lot more value to the business. And then my integrator, my operations manager, was the person who could actually make that happen. He could make sure the team was doing what they were supposed to be doing. That was a huge realization for me. So after working with Daniel, I did manage to break that 25K a month barrier. And not only that, I got a free feature in Founder magazine, founder.com, for working with Daniel, because he was doing this new course partnered with Founder, and I was one of his successful case studies in that. But at that point, we were still missing something, because I was meeting a lot of other agency owners that had blasted right past that 25K a month mark that I had just broken, and I didn't know what it was yet. So now on to my second SMMA mentor, Joel Kaplan from Agency Labs. I found out about Joel through my friend Wyra Mendoza, who had at that time scaled from a smaller level to $250,000 a month in a pretty short period of time. So naturally, I asked him who his mentor was. And when I started working with Joel, I was at about $40,000 a month, and this was during the pandemic lockdown. So I was just really focused on my work, and I wasn't really focused on doing fun things or hanging out with friends. I was pretty much ready to invest the $10,000 that it was gonna take, because my friend who I trusted, he already got really good results with Joel. And at that point in my agency, making $40K a month, it wasn't that big of a stretch to spend that $10,000 to work with Joel. And I was pretty confident that it would be worth it. The top things that I learned from Joel, number one was cold email. Up until that point, we had gotten almost all of our clients from organic marketing, like posting on Facebook, growing a Facebook group and things like that. And cold email, once we got the system set up, it was continually bringing us 3 or 4 booked sales calls per week with a pretty small amount of effort. And that doesn't really sound like much, but at our close rate at the time was around 50%. That's like 1 client per week. With the amount of money that we're spending on cold email, which was maybe $100, $150 a month, it was totally worth it. And the second big thing that I got from Joel Kaplan was a really big sense of community. So Joel at the time, the program was called 7-Figure Agency back then, he had, I think, more than 100 different people on the same journey, all in a big group, and we were all just feeding off each other's energy. We were posting our success screenshots in the Facebook group. We were learning things from each other that even Joel wasn't teaching us, and being part of that community just really galvanized my own belief that I could also get those same results that other people in the group are getting. And that's more valuable than people realize. When you don't believe that you can achieve a certain result, it's really, really hard to keep working and grinding every single day to achieve that result. But if you do believe that, and you see other people who are just like you, who are getting that result, doing the same strategies as you, it really helps you find that motivation to keep working. But then a new problem started to arise. Our team was growing bigger and bigger. And up until that point, we didn't really have any like HR resources or ways of dealing with larger teams. And that was starting to become a little bit chaotic. And that brings us to our final and by far my biggest investment into an SMMA course, which was Joel Kaplan's Inner Circle program, his higher level program for the people who had success with his lower level program. So at that point, we had cracked the 50K per month revenue level, and that made me qualified for the Inner Circle. And at that point, it was almost like a no-brainer for me. Like, we had already gotten really good results working with Joel, and I saw the value in that. And I also saw that other people who were in this Inner Circle program were doing 200 grand a month, 250 a month. They were the people that I wanted to become in my own agency. But this investment for me was no joke. It was $36,000, but it was easier for me because it was paid on a monthly basis. So it was $3,000 per month, which in my brain, that was like paying a pretty good level employee for a salary. So the way I looked at it, I was basically paying someone's salary to get the knowledge that would take me to that next level. The top things that I learned from Inner Circle were team building, HR, and team culture. So this is where we really got into the operations of the business. How do we actually scale really A-player team members and have a good culture for these team members where they're gonna be happy and they're gonna output good work? Because at this point, once you get over 50K a month, it starts to become more about your employees and how they're performing rather than how you as the founder are performing. And I guess that ties into the second point a lot. It's more about the mindset shift of you as the founder, because up until that point, I was kind of like the hero founder who had to do everything. I had to have my hands in every single bucket of the business, marketing, sales, the operations, the actual client work, and everything like that. But at that point, it became impossible to do all of that. So really focusing on the team, making sure I had really good people in place and they were operating on good systems and processes that would get a good result for our clients, that became the big mental shift for me. So being a part of that program with other people who were doing really high level things was, again, part of the biggest value that I got out of this mentorship with Joel. And then number 3, because this mentorship was a lot more than the other ones, we got a lot more one-on-one support. So whenever I had a big problem in my business, I could just book a call with their sales expert, their marketing expert, their operations expert, or whoever was the best person to actually help me solve my problem and get straight to the problem. This wasn't just like a $2,000 course anymore where you're getting all these videos and you have to figure it out for yourself. This was $36,000. So they could afford to give me one-on-one calls with those people, which would get me to that exact thing I needed to do at that exact time. And the more money you're making, the more that specific information is valuable. So as crazy as it sounds, it was totally worth $36,000 for me at that time to get that specific information, because it might have taken me an extra year or maybe an extra 2 years to come to those own conclusions myself, which when you're making $50,000 a month of revenue is tens of thousands of dollars a month that you're missing out on that you could have gotten to a lot faster. So now let's get to the real question. Was it worth it? And I'm gonna answer this from the perspective of multiple different people at different levels. So for me, at every single time that I invested in a mentor, it was worth it. But that's not the same for everybody. I think it really depends on where you're at, and it also depends on if that mentor is right for you at that specific time. Because if you take the wrong mentor who is too far ahead of where you are right now, you're not gonna actually get that value from that mentorship, and you're gonna spend way more money than you need to. And me personally, I was very careful about which mentor I was working with at which time, and that scrutiny, I think all of you should apply, no matter where you are. If you haven't started your agency, then you should only work with people who are just getting people from 0 to 1. If you work with people at all, maybe you just look at YouTube videos. But if you're someone who is at $10,000 a month, then you specifically need to be working with people who work normally with people who are making $10,000 a month, getting them up to 20 or 30 or 50K a month. But even beyond that, the really big theme between all of my mentorships that I paid for was the mentality, getting me into that mindset that I really believed that I could get to the next level. Because every mentorship I was a part of just galvanized my belief that I could actually be that entrepreneur who got to the next level. I'm someone who grew up in a pretty lower middle class family that didn't have a whole lot of money. We certainly weren't like poor, but we just didn't have extra money going into things. So my financial beliefs was that it was really hard to get to 20K a month, and then it was really impossible to get to 50K a month, and then to get to 100K a month was like just ridiculous in my mind. So breaking through those own mental belief barriers was one of the biggest benefits I got from all of these mentorships. And that can't really be understated, the value of that. And if you haven't figured it out already, I'm a big believer in investing in yourself. And I've spent $58,000 on SMMA courses, but if you include non-SMMA courses, then I've spent more than $100,000 on programs over the course of my career. And I will continue to do that as I grow, and as I grow as a person and as an entrepreneur, and I hopefully will never stop investing in my own personal growth. But at the same time, if you are just starting out and you really have no money in your bank account, then do not invest in SMMA courses. Go get all of those amazing free resources on YouTube. Get yourself from 0 to 1, and once you have some revenue coming in, then you have money to invest in these programs and grow yourself further. Because trust me, there is no reason to invest in SMMA courses when you do not already have at least $10,000 a month coming in from your business. So that's it, guys. Check out this video right here for my journey with toxic hustle culture, growing my agency from 0 to 7 figures, and then burnout and all of that good stuff. Check it out right here.